Picture this. You're asked to do a simple favor, something small, something that seems harmless. You're asked to deliver a basket of food to an elderly man, someone who's been ill and in need of help. It's a peaceful village, and the walk is familiar. It's an evening task, and you think it will be over before nightfall. But what happens when something you've taken for granted, your safety, your trust in others, suddenly turns against you? You enter a stranger's house, thinking you're doing the right thing. You expect kindness. What you don't expect is that, by the end of the night, you'll be trapped. The door will be locked, the room sealed shut, and the man you thought you could trust will stand between you and freedom. What would you do if you were locked in a room, unsure of what he might do next, unable to escape alone, in the dark, with nothing but your wits and your fear to guide you? This story isn't just about a night spent trapped behind a locked door. It's a story that uncovers how easy it is to trust someone, and how quickly that trust can shatter. A story about survival, choices, and the haunting question: what do you do when the danger is right in front of you, but you can't escape it? Stay with me as we take you through a night that could make anyone question their own instincts, their own sense of security, and leave them wondering if they truly know the people around them. As we delve into this true crime tale, we'll reveal the tension that built up with each passing hour, as the night unfolded in ways no one could have expected. With every step, the feeling of being watched, the questions, the confusion, each detail will leave you wondering, how could something so normal, so simple, turn so frightening? You'll hear what happened during those long hours trapped inside, and the chilling truth about the man who never let her leave. This isn't just a case of misunderstanding. It's a night that exposed a darker truth about those we think we know. The deeper we go, the more unsettling the truth becomes. As we reflect on this real-life story, subscribe and don't forget to turn on the notification bell for more daily stories that need to be heard. Hit that subscribe button. And let us hear from you in the comments below. We'd love to hear from you. Now, let's continue. Zuri was a young woman, just 20 years old, living in a small village tucked along the banks of the Nile River. Her village was a place of peace, where the days passed quietly and life seemed almost untouched by the outside world. But it was a place where the sounds of the river, the chatter of children, and the rustling of palm trees hid secrets that few knew about, and fewer still were brave enough to confront. It was an evening like any other when Zuri's mother, Amina, called out to her. Zuri had spent the day playing with her friends by the river, laughing and enjoying the last rays of sunlight. She had never imagined that this ordinary evening would lead to something far more unsettling. Her mother had asked her to take a basket of food to an old man, Baba Suleiman, a reclusive 70-year-old who lived alone on the outskirts of the village. He hadn't been feeling well, and Amina had promised to help him. But as a mother often does, Amina had a note of concern in her voice. "Zuri," she said, "be careful on the path to Baba Suleiman's house. It's dangerous at night." Zuri nodded, trying to dismiss the feeling of unease that crept up her spine. After all, it was just a small favor, something to do for someone in need. But there was something about Baba Suleiman's home that had always made her uneasy. The path was known to be treacherous after dark, twisting through tall grass and thorny bushes, the silence broken only by the occasional rustle of unseen creatures in the shadows. In the quiet of the night, the air seemed thick, heavy with anticipation. As she stepped out of her home, the familiar sounds of the village faded, and with each step toward Baba Suleiman's house, Zuri couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. It wasn't just the stories she'd heard about the haunted path, it was the feeling of being watched. Her heart began to race with every step, but she kept going. She had to be brave for her mother, for her family. The moon hung high in the sky, casting long shadows on the ground as Zuri walked, the path seeming to stretch endlessly before her. Her footsteps echoed in the still night air, and every crack of a twig underfoot made her jump. It wasn't just the darkness, it was the growing tension in the air, as if the night itself held its breath. Zuri tried to shake off the thoughts that raced through her mind. What if something happened? What if Baba Suleiman was more than just a sick old man? But she kept walking. She couldn't back out now. The thought of her mother waiting at home, worried for her, kept her moving forward. When she finally arrived at Baba Suleiman's house, a small weathered hut at the edge of the village, she saw the flickering light of an oil lantern through the window, and she felt a small sense of relief. She wasn't alone. She knocked gently on the door, and after a few moments, it creaked open. Baba Suleiman stood before her, his skin wrinkled, his hair as white as snow. Despite his age, his eyes were sharp and unsettling. "Ah, Zuri," he said with a soft smile, "I'm glad you've come. Come in, come in." As Zuri stepped into the small home, she couldn't help but notice the odd details around her. The house, although modest, felt strange, as if the very walls held secrets. Baba Suleiman's movements were slow but deliberate, his presence imposing despite his frail frame. There was an unsettling stillness in the room, as if the house itself was holding its breath. The fire in the hearth crackled quietly, but it did little to ease the tension she felt building inside her. Her eyes fell upon the bedroom door. There was a large, heavy lock on it. Zuri had never seen anything like it before. The lock seemed out of place in such a small, humble home. She could feel her heart beat faster, but she forced herself to smile and remain polite. "It's just to keep the wind out." Baba Suleiman chuckled, sensing her hesitation. But his words did little to reassure her. There was something about the way he said it, too calm, too practiced, that didn't sit right with her. She handed him the basket of food, and after a few moments, he led her to a small, wooden chair by the fire. His smile was kind, but something about the situation felt increasingly off. She tried to push the thoughts from her mind as Baba Suleiman began to unpack the food. His voice, warm and inviting, soon filled the room as he began to tell her stories of his youth, of places far away, of battles fought, of distant lands. It was fascinating at first, but Zuri couldn't shake the feeling that she wasn't alone in the room, as if there was something hidden beneath the surface of the old man's stories. I do hope you have subscribed already, as it is about to get really interesting. She had heard that Baba Suleiman had been alone for years. He had no family, no close friends, and yet he welcomed her with open arms, asking her to stay longer than expected. It was getting late, and as the clock ticked closer to midnight, Zuri began to grow tired. The thought of walking back through the dark, dangerous path alone seemed far worse than staying the night. But as Baba Suleiman asked her to stay, something shifted in her gut. She didn't want to refuse him, but she also felt an overwhelming sense of discomfort. Something wasn't right. And when Baba Suleiman locked the bedroom door behind her, the chill she had been trying to ignore finally took hold. The door was locked, and the night stretched ahead with no way out. Zuri had always trusted her instincts, but at this moment, she wasn't sure whether to trust them or not. The kindness in Baba Suleiman's voice was warm, but it couldn't erase the deepening unease. She thought of her mother's words, "Be careful, Zuri. There's danger in the night." Her mother had always been protective, always warning her to be cautious. Was this the kind of danger her mother had meant? Or was it just her mind playing tricks on her, overreacting to an innocent request? But Zuri knew one thing for certain. She was trapped. As she lay in the small bed, listening to the night outside, she could feel her fear rising. She had no way of knowing if Baba Suleiman meant her harm, but the sense of isolation, of being alone in a strange house with no escape, gnawed at her. This wasn't just about fear of the dark, it was fear of being trapped in a place that no longer felt safe. As the door to Baba Suleiman's home creaked open, Zuri stepped inside, trying to shake off the lingering unease she felt. The house was small, cluttered with old books and trinkets, but it was the bedroom door that caught her attention. A large, heavy lock was fastened on the door, strange for such a humble home. Baba Suleiman, sensing her hesitation, smiled gently and explained, "Don't worry, my dear. It's just to keep the wind from blowing the door open at night." But something about his explanation didn't sit right with Zuri. The lock wasn't just unusual, it felt out of place, as if it served a different purpose entirely. A cold shiver ran down her spine, but she brushed it off. It was just an old man being cautious, she told herself. After handing him the basket of food, Baba Suleiman led her to a small chair by the fire. His warmth and hospitality were inviting, but Zuri could feel the tension in the room, like an invisible weight pressing down on her. Despite her growing unease, she stayed polite. But as the evening wore on, something began to shift. Baba Suleiman's words grew more insistent. "It's too late to go back now, Zuri. The path is dangerous at night." He spoke as if he knew something she didn't, his eyes gleaming with an intensity that made her skin crawl. Zuri, torn between her instincts and politeness, finally agreed to stay the night. It seemed like the only reasonable thing to do until it wasn't. As night fell and the shadows in the room grew longer, Baba Suleiman stood up and walked toward the bedroom door. Zuri watched, her heart pounding. And then, with a click, she heard the unmistakable sound of the lock turning. The bedroom door was locked behind her. The feeling in Zuri's chest shifted from discomfort to a growing, gut-wrenching panic. She was trapped. Her mind raced, trying to make sense of what was happening. Was it just an old man's eccentricity, or had she stepped into something far darker than she could have ever imagined? Zuri's breath quickened as the seconds stretched on. The lock clicked shut behind Harriet's sound echoing in her mind. She couldn't escape. Please, my lovely family, remember to subscribe and hit the bell icon so that you won't ever miss the next thrilling story coming up next. What had seemed like a harmless favor was now turning into something far more sinister. Zuri realized with growing dread that she wasn't just staying in a stranger's house for the night, she was now a prisoner. And the old man, Baba Suleiman, might not be the friendly host she thought him to be. The lock clicked shut behind her. Zuri's heart pounded, and a chill ran down her spine. She knew something was wrong, but she didn't know what. Every instinct told her to run, but the door was locked, and Baba Suleiman, he wasn't the man she had thought he was. Baba Suleiman's house was full of an unexplainable sense of isolation. The heavy lock on the bedroom door, the odd insistence on her staying the night, his sharp eyes watching her every move. Was it just the strange behavior of an old man, or was there something more dangerous hiding behind those innocent smiles? Something Zuri couldn't see yet. As Zuri lay on the small bed, the quiet of the house seemed to press in on her. The wind howled outside, but inside, the sounds were worse: creaking floors, faint whispers, and the unsettling noise of footsteps moving through the house. Zuri tried to close her eyes, but sleep wouldn't come. Every little sound made her heart race. Was it just the wind, or was it something more? Her thoughts raced back to her mother's warnings. "Trust your instincts, Zuri," Amina had always told her. "If something doesn't feel right, it probably isn't." Zuri had dismissed them at the time, but now, those words echoed in her mind with a chilling clarity. Had she made a terrible mistake? Suddenly, Zuri's eyes snapped open. A door creaked. She held her breath. Footsteps, slow, deliberate. Baba Suleiman was in the room. Zuri's heart pounded in her chest as she tried to push the terror from her mind. But the reality was inescapable. She was locked in, with no way out. Desperation set in. The man she thought she could trust was now a terrifying figure. She tried the window, but it was too small to escape. The lock on the door was too strong. She was trapped. Her instincts were screaming now, but it was too late. Zuri's increasing fear as she hears noises and realizes the threat is real. The flashback to her mother's warning, which she now regrets ignoring. The small, subtle details like the creaking door and Baba Suleiman's footsteps, signaling that something is very wrong. As Zuri lay frozen in fear, Baba Suleiman moved closer, his footsteps silent on the wooden floor. Her heart pounded in her chest as she realized something was wrong. This wasn't about safety anymore. He wasn't just trying to keep her inside, he was blocking her escape. Zuri's panic surged. Her eyes darted around the room, searching for a way out. And then she saw a small, partially open window. Her breath caught. This was her only chance. In one frantic motion, she scrambled towards the window, desperation fueling her every movement. She tugged at the latch, her fingers shaking, and with a force she didn't know she had, the window flew open. Without thinking, she squeezed through the opening and tumbled out into the dark night. The wind rushed past her as she ran, feet pounding against the earth, heart hammering. She didn't dare look back. She didn't care what had happened inside that house as she was free. But the questions remained. What had Baba Suleiman wanted? Was it all just a misunderstanding? Or had she narrowly escaped something far darker? Zuri ran, but the answers would have to wait. Zuri stumbled into her home, her body shaking with exhaustion and fear. She barely had the strength to speak, but the moment her mother enveloped her in her arms, all the terror and tension of the night seemed to drain away. Safe, finally. But the mystery of Baba Suleiman lingered. What had really happened in that house? Zuri would never know for sure. The questions would haunt her, but the relief of being home, of being alive, was enough for now. Her mind raced, replaying the events in fragments. The locked door, the unsettling silence, the warning she'd ignored. But one thing she knew for certain: she would never again underestimate the danger that could lie in the most familiar of places. The story of Zuri and Baba Suleiman serves as a stark reminder of the fragility of trust. What would you have done in her shoes? Could you have escaped in time? And when your instincts warn you, will you listen or will you ignore them like Zuri did? What do you think really happened that night? Was Baba Suleiman truly a danger? Or was Zuri's fear based on a misunderstanding? Share your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to hear your theories. If you found this story as chilling as we did, make sure to hit like, share, and subscribe for more true crime tales. Don't forget to turn on the notification bell so you never miss an update on our latest stories. And if you enjoyed this one, be sure to check out our other real-life mysteries and join us for even more suspenseful narratives. If you found this story chilling, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more true crime tales like this one. Hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. If you enjoyed this story, check out our other chilling real-life mysteries and join us for more suspenseful narratives.